mist and rain on them. But I know it was tough pressing out. There'll be some coming a little later. But God has been good to us. Just want to give a shout out to our minister Hampton. Thank him for carrying through on the love chapter, getting that peace. And y'all talking about love. Some of y'all act like y'all knew a little bit about love. It is so good just to be back as we jump into Leviticus. I want you to know we are close to getting finished with the book of Leviticus. I'm very close. I'm printing out. We'll kind of be flowing tonight. I'm going to need some readers, and then we're going to go into Deuteronomy. And so Leviticus Numbers, I'm sorry, we did Deuteronomy, Leviticus Numbers. And when we get to Numbers, there are going to be a lot of repeats. And so what we're going to do, we're going to combine those scriptures because we've already read them. And then you're going to be able to see that a lot of times when you read Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, there's a lot of scriptures that are repeated. And so one of my family members came to me one time and said, I just read this. When did I read this? Because they're repeated over and over again. So we're going to combine those together because I'm excited to get into that promised land with Joshua. Today, going back into Leviticus, we're going to deal with the Sabbath of the seventh year. Now, remember I told you when you see numbers, you see threes. What does that stand for, General? Trinity, all right? You got ones, that's the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. You got five is what? Grace. And then you got seven is completeness. It continues up, actually. You got your tens, you got your 12s. They stand for something, but those predominant numbers are your ones, your threes, your fives, and your seven. And so today we're dealing with the Sabbath of the seventh year. And all those numbers I called out, you're going to see some of those when God puts together provisions for deliverance and setting people free. So let's go ahead and jump into this, the Sabbath of the seventh year. Leviticus 25:1. Someone read, please.
And the Lord spoke to Moses on Mount Sinai, saying.
Now remember this whole setting that we've gone through. All of these chapters, we're still at Mount Sinai. Our children of Israel out in the middle of the wilderness. We know it's going to take 40 years because of their disobedience to these specific laws, going around in circle. But God is speaking. The word is powerful. Again, reference is made to the fact that these laws were given to who? Given to Moses while the Israelites were still in Mount Sinai. Moses wrote them down in a book. And this is key. I've got in the habit of this a long time ago. When God speaks to me, I write things down. Even when I get dreams. And because I don't dream a whole bunch, when I do dream very vividly, I write those things down just in case. Some of those things have come to pass. Some of those things have just been because I ate something too late that night. But I never want to miss the Lord. When I learn things, certain things that I've gone through, I've learned, I want to write them down, and I actually bring them back to my remembrance. And I encourage you, the lesson that God teaches you, write them down. I encourage people to do journals in your life. Just write down, especially when you know you heard the voice of the Lord. Write it down and put a reminder so you can read over that, so you can go back and rehearse. And this is what we get with this law that God speaks. Someone read Leviticus 25:2.
Speak to the children of them, and say to them, when you come into the land which I give you, then the land shall be kept a Sabbath to the Lord.
Now, we're looking to the future. So, as we're in Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, that's when we actually get to the promised land. Right now, we're kind of skirting around the edge of it. So, God gives us direction for the future. When you come into a lot of things that we are in our life right now, God already spoke to us years before. He's already prepared. I kind of like to look back in my life and just see how God directed, especially as I see my life, the life of my kids matriculate, and they've got all the things planned out in school and everything. I just kind of laugh because once you live long, you start to realize sometimes our plans do not equate to God's plans. And I just think about all the things I had plans, the places that are going to go, and now I'm at Ebenezer. I'm not putting y'all down or anything like that. It's just amazing how God speaks to the future, and you can look back and you can see God's hand working. This law was for the future when Israel would dwell in the land of milk and honey. Then shall the land keep a Sabbath unto the Lord, just as God provided a weekly Sabbath for his people. He provided what? A rest for what? The land. 1 year rest after 6 years of production. Now this is key. We've talked about rest for us, which many of us don't do. Many of us don't have a true Sabbath that we can rest. And you see that in disease and stresses and emotional. I think a lot of our issues, especially in the church, come from a lack of a Sabbath. I'm seeing people with more emotional issues, mental issues, just fellas, and I think our bodies are just not rested enough. But God is also going to show us within these scriptures that the land has to be rested. And some of you grew, I was hoping Deacon Rudd would get here and some farmers, Deacon Lenny in here knows that you got to rest the land for it to produce. Deacon Lenny.
Yes, we used to do it on the farm like that. So after about 2 or 3 years, you let that rest and don't pay anything on it for a year or two.
Amen.
And I was balling, but he did it.
I want you to start thinking about the things in your life. When do you let them rest? You know, I mean, even when we're on trips, a lot of times when I was younger, you just push through a 10-hour trip. You just keep driving till the gas runs out. The signs have told us you need to take a rest every now and then. You need to pull off about every hour and a half, stretch your legs, get the blood flowing. This whole process here of rest we've taken for granted in our society. And the simple reason is because we're always on. Think about it. This is a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week society. Our phones are always connected. They're always ringing. They're always texting. We got news that's 24 hours, everything. Unless you consciously turn stuff off, it is on 24 hours, 7 days. When do we truly rest? In our homes. When you go to bed tonight, I want you to look around your room and look how many lights are in your room. This stuff, blue lights, white lights, green lights, red lights, everything's just still going all through the house. We've got to consciously turn it off. Notice as God gives directives here, Leviticus 25, 3 and 4. Someone read, please.
6 years you shall sow your field, and 6 years you shall prune your vineyard, and gather its fruit. But in the 7th year there shall be a Sabbath, a solemn rest for the land, and Sabbath to the Lord. You shall neither sow your field nor prune your vineyard.
This is very critical, and we're going to get to a question momentarily. God says, don't do this. You got to have a rest here. Look at that commentary. During the Sabbath year, there was to be neither the planting of grain nor the pruning of the grapevines. These were the two primary agricultural pursuits of Israel. But there's an issue that comes up. If you stop planting, if you're not doing anything at this point, what is it affecting? If you're not planning on these years, if you're just kind of not doing anything, what is it hitting? What is it taking away from people? Your pocketbook. And that's why our society, we've learned that the more you push, the more money you can make. So the longer you push, the more money you can make. But God says, no, I don't want you to do that. I want you to trust me. There are going to be some times that I'm going to do things that are contrary to the world's way. You're just going to have to shut it down, and you're going to have to know that I provide. Looking at that question, should we observe something like this today? Should there be something in our society in the United States that on the 7th year we kind of rest things? Mr. Michelle.
Yeah, but going back to what you were saying, we should rest. A number of years ago, people would walk. Your phone didn't ring during dinner time. Everybody knew everybody did at 6 o'clock back when I was young. If that phone ringing, it's a teacher calling about one of the kids. But anyway, and I understand that we do need to rest.
All right.
We need to get ourselves in that frame of mind because right now the kids, their mind is going, somebody needs to be stable in the society.
All right. So resting our minds, resting. Deacon Lenny talked about the fields. We need to rest our fields. Go ahead.
We respect the Sabbath a lot better. Here lately, the Sabbath day, we're doing everything on Sabbath. We got wood and everything that we're going to get up on Saturday. You don't get out there yet to carry in wood on Sunday. Back before we had to pump to our spring, we carried our water in for Sunday. We didn't be carrying it. We just did the things and the rest and the
A time of rest, whether it's Sunday for you or any other, there's got to be a time of rest. God said it for the Israelites We need it. We need it for, again, our mental health, that resting time. Anthony.
I was just gonna say, I think it'd be beneficial because it's a lost value in our society, the value of planning ahead. I think if we had that 7 year, it would teach a lot of people in a lot of generations how to plan ahead, how to hold back and not, we live in a society where we think everything, we have everything right here at our fingertips. We don't have to save, we don't have to plan ahead. If we need it, we got it. But if you had that 7 year where things kind of stop and see, it would make people slow down and think about how can I plan to get through that year.
Amen. A lot of people, because we're so busy, people live paycheck to paycheck. You miss a pay, and they say a majority of people in the United States are 2 paychecks from poverty. Like, really?
Yeah.
Because we spend everything that we get, because we just continue on, and we're believing, hey, it's going to be there, but if it's taken away, all of a sudden we get behind, more behind, and if you're in debt, bless your heart, interest will eat you up. You got to be rich to be in debt. So this whole process, the Sabbath, God says, instituted, there needs to be a rest. Notice as he continues with this, Leviticus 25, 5, 6, and 7. Someone read, please.
What grows of its own accord of your harvest you should not reap, nor gather the grapes of your intended vine. For it is a year of rest for the land, and the Sabbath produce of the land shall be food for you. For you, your male and female, servants, your hired man, and the stranger who dwell with you. For your livestock and the beasts that are in your land, all it produces shall be your food.
Oh, this is a principle that you got to get. God will provide. I'm actually in our 8 o'clock service, I'm dealing with Elijah and how God provides for him this coming Sunday. And many of you, if you can think back in your life, it hasn't really been you that's been providing for you. It's been God. Anytime you get up in the morning, you have your health and strength, you're able to go out to work. He gives you wisdom, it's God. So now we see the principle of God providing when he tells us not to work. Look at that commentary. That which grew on its own that year was to be free for all, rich, poor, stranger, servant, cattle, and beasts. Would there be enough? Yes, plenty. God promised to provide, look at this. What? How much? A 2 years supply in the harvest of the ordinary 6-year and a 3-year supply in the 48th year prior to a double sabbath. Just thinking about this, I think God has provided for us. But what we've done, we've eaten up all the grain. So God has given us a double amount. He's given us a triple amount. But instead of putting that aside, as Angela brought out, for those times that God says rest, we're spending it all. Think about if we changed our mentality. And I've been teaching this for years and years, that God, I want to be debt-free. I want to get to a point that I'm not spending everything that you're giving me so that I can rest. I can use my money to actually rest and not try to just go from paycheck to paycheck. This is the principle God is bringing out. He said, I'm going to give you enough within those years to provide for you when I said don't even plan anything. That's a God. That's the way I want to live. I want to live. I mean, you're like, don't even, some of you just waiting for retirement, but don't you want to be like, you know what? You can take this job and shove it because God has blessed me. And you just kind of rest in the Lord. You don't have so much stress in that process. And God said, I can provide if you follow through with what I tell you to do. Yes, sir.
In the summertime, we have about 7 apple trees and about 6 or 7 peach trees. We get them up and get blackberry, and we come to the basement. We get that in the wintertime. If you run to the store, we get all the way up for through the winter that we have. And a lot of times they would get 80 to 100 jars of apples and peaches and blackberry. So we went, and they were free because they grew up on the farm.
We were starved. Our generation was just starved. Because I'm serious. And y'all know when electricity goes off, your freezer go off, we just through. It's just that thought pattern of setting aside, having a Sabbath is gone. Look at that last part of the commentary. This is very important. The question comes, okay, so we don't have to work in the fields for those years. what do? We just kind of sit back and vacation? No. Notice that last part. It clearly brings out, God says, now you have time to teach. Now you have that. You're not working all the time, so now you can teach your children. You can give the law. You can give understanding. Science has told us that parents need to spend more time with their kids, that you need to get your life to a point that you're not working all the time trying to give them everything, but you need to make your money work for you so you can teach them. Because if we're not teaching our kids, somebody is. Right? We're paying other people to teach them. They need us. So that whole process, God is setting the standards. Deacon Mepper.
Yes, I noticed Deacon Leonard was saying we were doing that. We didn't do it. Our parents did it. We the ones that broke the cycle.
Okay, all right. So we did it to a point. Some still doing a little, but not like you used to in those days. Minister Hampton.
Even at looking at the teaching of the children, God was in a sense, they were teaching that, they were sowing in their children to keep this going. So in a sense, God was still preparing the people for the future generations of, okay, this is what you've seen us do, so you all do. So in a way, they were still preparing for the future by teaching the children.
Amen. Mama, did your mom ever can or anything? She did. Did you ever train us how to can? No, it's like this what happens. Sometimes we don't do and teach and train and we don't catch it to go forward.
When we were small, we had to get in and help. We had to fill all those houses and stick them on and jump off. And also get the blackberries and go out, take the dog, he get the snakes. And he picked the blackberries. You didn't get too small to do anything. We would carry, even if you didn't carry one stick in, you carry good training.
Right.
Because I'm glad they taught me how to work. Because a lot of people out here, that's why we have so many people out here trying to make quick money on dope. It's too late to work. Because I was trained up to work very early in life. Get that word in, move it in, make it a bale, bake it up, switch. All of this was in the work. You didn't get too small to do things.
We can't do that in our society now. You know, kids, they're too tender. You know, there's so many things that are coming, but we can see God's word still stands. But
I know growing up in that area was a lot more, they always had gardens, big gardens. And beans, cash, and over 100 jars of beans, sometimes those are big gallon jars. Beans, she canned corn, during, fall chili time, she would have sausage and pork meat, which she canned. We had a smokehouse, and, so all of that, like in the basement, and, it's just like you had the stuff on, then we had to go to the store for it, with the flour and stuff like that. And, but they had corn, we ground it up, took it to the mill, had cornmeal, you know, had everything but grits.
we got food line now. It is, yes, for sure.
And when I was coming, three girls, and each one of us had our day, we had to cook for the whole house. And that was our job, not only cook, but also clean up our mess also. And people, my friends would get mad at me, but I had my boys in the kitchen when they was like 12 and 13 years old, teaching them how to cook. Thank God I did, but these girls don't know how to cook. I shouldn't have stopped. They don't want to be in the kitchen, and mothers don't cook in the kitchen. I know a woman who's 30 years old, don't know how to do nothing, and she fast food all the time.
Laws passed down. Let me get this next part, and I'll get the questions. So, Jubilee. This is a critical time. So, he's saying in the law we have to set aside. He's going to provide, and now we're going to have a time of rest. But now there's a big one called Jubilee because he knows that we got issues. He knows there's going to be some folks that, in spite of what God has said, is going to do it their own way. So in the Israelite community, God has even set aside laws for lazy folks and people who got caught up in issues that they knew they shouldn't have got caught up, but yet they did in spite of. Someone read this, Leviticus 8 through 10, please.
And you shall count 7 Sabbath years for yourself, 7 times 7 years, and the time of the 7 Sabbaths of years shall be to you 49 years. Then you shall cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. On the day of atonement, you shall make the trumpet to sound throughout all your land. And you shall consecrate the 50th year and proclaim liberty throughout all the land to all its inhabitants. It shall be a jubilee for you, and each of you shall return to his possession, and each of you shall return to his family.
Look at that commentary. After the 7th Sabbath year, the 50th year was to be a jubilee. And they were to proclaim liberty throughout the land. Verse 10. And on the Day of Atonement, possessions of land that have been sold would then revert back to who? How would America change if we do this? We're going? Think about this, because we weren't the original owners, right? Right? Some of y'all got to be shipped back overseas. If it went back, I hope everything would change. It wouldn't be so much commercialized with land. You know, a lot of people buying up land because they understand that you're not really making any more land, that whole process. But if at that 50th year it reverted back, our mindset would change. I think it would affect how we even live. If you knew what you had, it will revert back in the 50th year to its original owner. Speak Linda.
I was going to say, one thing, like when we didn't have power, we don't know. That's just the thing when power was. So back then when we didn't have the power, and when we kept our meat in a smoke house, or you saw it down, and flies on top. There, you saw it came down, they keep all year, and you don't have to, and once you saw it down, draw the blood out of it, you hang it up, and it's fly on top.
Deacon Lenny's still talking about that preservation, but also think about if your house was on the land of somebody else who originally owned it, and at the 50th year, all that stuff that you built up, it went back to the original owner. Sharecroppers lost it all. So now your mindset changed. And this was the key. We've gone through, remember we talked about land being passed down, and when we get to Joshua, we're going to deal with that even more. That land of family, they kept that family. It was actually assigned to them. And some of you had land that was assigned to you. It was passed down from generation after generation after generation, and you didn't know what to do with it. So what'd you do? You sold it for like a quarter of the price. And you bought you a little Subaru. Subaru done broke down now, and you have nothing to show for it when it comes to your family passing that down. That's why land ownership was so important within the Old Testament. They understood, you know what, even if we loan this out, it comes back to the original owners. God has assigned us this land. Our mindsets would change if we get back to that thought pattern. Let's say,
That's a little history on the land we bought across the street. The owner before the owner that we bought it from was a black man. But the owner before that was some people in Sagefield that owned Millis. The Adams Farm people, they owned it originally. They owned the whole neighborhood. So, Carl Alexander Sr. was the one that we grew up knowing that owned it because he had a cotton field on there. And some Butch and maybe Ellis remember that. Yeah.
isn't it amazing how things change over? But it kind of goes around with this circle. Land passed off. And God said, I'm going to fix that. At the 50th year, we reset it. It goes back to the original owner.
I was here when, I thought that was a small price when the first person had 18,000. Crazy. And look where it went to from there. But I was real sad. What was going on? Some of them were smart. They would let timber grow, and then they would cut out certain amount of
Passing that land down.
Pass it on down.
Right.
And that's how they got, buy other land. Timber grow up, they had to cut, and they buy other land.
Andrew.
I think this is also too, God is reminding us, this is in our home. We own something, we get comfortable, we junk it up, we move our stuff in, but when you just passing through, when you go to a hotel, you don't put all your stuff in the hotel, you kind of get by what you can get by. When you get a car, you ain't putting all your little stuff in the rental car, you just getting through the week, however long you're gonna have a rental car. So you remind us, we don't need to get too comfortable, we don't own anything, we're just passing through. Our home, we should be spending and investing in what we're gonna be in eternally, which is in heaven.
And that's ultimately where we're going to build up. God is saying the original owner is He. God owns everything, and that's what He's building up to. I need a reader. Leviticus 25:11 through 17. Someone read, please.
That 50th year shall be a jubilee to you. In it you shall neither sow nor reap what grows of its own accord, nor gather grapes of your unintended vine, for it is the jubilee. It shall be holy to you. You shall eat its produce from the field. In this year of the jubilee, each of you shall return to his possession. And if you sell anything to your neighbor or buy from your neighbor's hand, you shall not oppress one another. According to the number of the years after the jubilee, you shall buy from your neighbor, and according to the number of years of crops he shall sell to you. According to the multitude of years, you shall increase his price, and according to the fewer number of years, you shall diminish his price, for he sells to you according to the number of years of the crops. Therefore you shall not oppress one another, but you shall fear your God, for I am the Lord your God.
All right, we're gonna take it step by step. God realized there would be folks that were real smart. And so they would go, all right, 50th year, it reverts back. And so they would start to think, I got to get my money out of this product. And so they would fluctuate the price. And so God said, I'm going to fix this. I'm going to put a law to keep you honest. And this is what God keeps. Look at that commentary. It says slaves were to be set free. The land was to lie fallow and was to revert to its original owner. The price of a slave or a piece of land decreased as the year of Jubilee approached. That makes sense? Because at the year of Jubilee, it's going to revert back. We would have did it the opposite way because we want to get more money, but God said it's going to decrease. We were prorated it. And so look at this. In all business transactions, we're supposed to take this fact into account. The words proclaim liberty throughout all the land and to all the inhabitants thereof, verse 10, are inscribed on the United States Liberty Bell. Isn't that interesting? Believers today may liken the year of Jubilee to the coming of the Lord. As we get closer to his coming, our material wealth decreases in value. Did you know that? It really does when we think about ourselves. The moment he comes, our money, real estate, and investments will be worthless to us. The moral is to put these things to work for him today. It's for all of us. It doesn't matter how much money you get. It doesn't matter how much nice clothing. Your time is decreasing. Right? All of us. Your time is decreasing. This doesn't matter. I don't know when that halfway point is for you. Some of you passed the halfway point. But when it's all said and done, no matter how much money you got, no matter how many nice clothes you got, you will no longer be able to use them. Right? You will no longer. I've been at too many funerals, too many end of the time. The person who passes away does not get to use that money. I hear people say, well, they wouldn't want that. They want to, have a nice casket and everything. I'm like, they don't care. They are gone. They have no choice. You can put them in there, excuse me, this is a thing, you butt naked. Just lay them in the casket, butt naked. They gone. They can't say anything. They can't do anything. It is over. It is done. It is complete. We no longer can use our finances. So the things that God gives us, this Jubilee shows us, we've got to use it today while today is, and look past ourselves and look to the future of others. That's what God says, generation after generation. We've got a generation now that lives for today, lives for itself, and does not think for future at all. And it's a sad thing many times when you see that. God says, no, we're not going to do that. I'm going to put things in society to make you think, to make you realize that you're not here forever. There is a limit to your lifespan. Yes, sir.
And that's probably good for, in the other section when you study about Job, is to have that thought about Job. I brought nothing into the world. I'm certainly not going to create that way. You see more argument over people, arguing right at death time, over the thing in the world. I mean, you can't kill the money with you, you're not going to be able to kill land with them.
Amen.
I mean, why get disturbed that over that? I don't know, but some of the biggest arguments come, when our parents leave us land and stuff like that. And if we ain't careful, we'll get that before God.
Amen. Look at this. Yes, Bianca.
I think it also makes you really look at what you already have and value what you already have. Because so often, we want to leave home, we want to go out and do this or that, we want a new job or whatever. And I think this is saying eventually you're going to come back around to where you started from. So maybe you need to just stay where you are. And I guess the saying goes, bloom where you planted. And make what you have, of value instead of always looking for value somewhere else, at some other place, in some other time. Can you make where you are right now a valuable and a beautiful place? Because you're going to wind up there again in a few short years.
Good point. The cycle of life. God is bringing it out. Look at this. God is making provisions, though, for this Sabbath year, these years of Jubilee. Someone read Leviticus 25:18-22, please.
So you shall observe my statutes and keep my judgment, and perform them, and you will dwell in the land of safety. Then the land will yield its fruit, and you will eat your fill, and dwell there in safety. And if you say, what shall we eat in these 7 years, since we shall not sow nor gather and or produce? And then I will command my blessing on you in the 6th year, and I will be with you. Produce enough for 3 years, and ye shall sow in the 8th year, and eat old produce until the 9th year, until its produce comes, and you shall eat of the old harvest.
Good job. So now, this process here, again, God is teaching them, when I bless you with more, it's not for you to eat it all up. Say it again. God is teaching them, when I bless you with more, it's not for you just to use it all up. But that's not what our churches teach a lot of times. Man, God bless me with this, go get some. And we shout about it. God gave me this extra money, I'm going to use it for this. Or we get extra money and we're always trying to keep up or pay from our back. We never can get off forward. God says, no, this is not how I want you to live. With regard to the sabbatic year, the people might wonder how they would have enough food to eat that year and the following year. God promised them that if they were obedient, he would give them what? Sufficient crops during the 6th year to last what? If they were what? Obedient, God would provide for them for how many years? You're not getting this. If they were God said, if you do what I tell you to do, and then in that 6th year, he would give them sufficient crops during the 6th year to last for how many years? Go God. Look at that question. How do you feel about this? Talk about it. What's our excuse? Worldly?
See, somebody has 2 cars, you want to up them, and now you need 5 cars. 2 people living in a house with 5 cars.
World?
Keep up with the world.
Keep up with the world? You see how we eat it up? Am I the only one y'all think y'all processing this? Because I believe in this day and time and years in your life, God has provided more than enough. More than enough. But we spent the more than enough. And we're stressing out. We're stressing out. I gotta make it. I got bills to do. Got all this. And God's like, I've given you over and over and over again. I said, just work these 6 years, and I'll give you 3 years. And that 6 years, you say, woo, God is good. And you spend it all. Then the 3 years, there was a famine. There was a quiet time. There was a jubilee, a releasing. You're like, God, why didn't you provide for me? Why didn't you provide for me? God, I'm just hitting a dry spot. God said, I told you the dry spot was going to come. I provided. But we get so behind. And so what do? After the 6th year, because we eat up everything he did in the 6th year, we get into the three years that he says don't do anything. It's kind of a dry spot. What does America do for 3 years? What do we have to do? You got to borrow. Because you ate up and you spent everything in the 6th year with the triple that God gave you. So now for the 3 years, you go in debt just to get through the 3 years. So when you come back, God is producing again. You already behind 3 years because you ate up the triple. How can you win? You can. God's way is the right way. Our way is the jacked up way. You can never.
The other thing we do is waste.
We waste it.
Landfill gets a lot of stuff.
How many of you don't eat leftovers? Just raise your hand. See, y'all, some of y'all, we're going to repent. We're going to be at the altar right after that. We're in a society that people don't eat leftovers. They don't. I mean, even in our society, in my family, I'm putting anything down. When I grew up, I pretty much had to eat everything. There was no choices or whatever. In my family, we got people with palates, different palates. You know, some eat chicken, some don't eat chicken. Some like beans, some don't like beans. Some like romaine, some like and they get a choice. Their mom is great; she buys out and everything. That ain't what I grew up in. And society has changed so much. And then when you put it in the refrigerator, guess what? It's in the garbage. The dog, he be looking at the refrigerator. Because he know. He's like, y'all ain't gonna eat it. Just give it to me. Waste. There was a hand. Isaiah.
Yeah, I just want to go back to the original passage where he said that we have to be obedient to God. And God provided for them for the first 6 years, and in the next 2 years, they were supposed to save things to take them over that 3 years, right?
Right.
Then you can take a flashback and look at the Israelites in Egypt. When Joseph went to Pharaoh and interpret the dream for him and tell him, you're going to have 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine.
Right.
And even Pharaoh was obedient to God because he listened and he put Joseph in charge. And they got you the famine.
Amen.
We're in today's society, we're not going to do that.
You're right.
We're just going to go there and reap everything that we can get, and we're not going to give the land any rest, and we're going to keep planting and planting until all of a sudden we start to put fertilizer into the ground because the land is not producing its crop.
You got it.
You remember back in the day before public assistance came about, family took care of each other. The whole block. You ain't had nothing, you could go to the neighbor's door, hey. But you go knock on the neighbor's door, where are my own kids to feed? I don't have no time, And it got really, really selfish. And I don't know if we ever get back to that point, only if the disaster happens, then we get back to that point of love. Just like now.
But everything's wiped out. A lot of times it resets for a little bit. But even in that, we got smart folks to get rich off of disasters now. Do the hands.
Eat leftovers, and it gets to be in the blood. Eat leftovers. And one thing we did for you, sometimes you know, 1 gram milk. Sweet milk is 1 gram.
Nothing was wasted. Look at this commentary. Once every 50 years, there would be 2 successive years when there would be no sowing or harvesting. None. That is, when the regular sabbatic year would be followed by the year of Jubilee. Presumably, the Lord gave enough crops in the 48th year to last for what? 40 years. I love the way God multiplies. Look at that next part. Some scholars believe that by inclusive reckoning, the 50th year was actually the 49th. At any rate, this is an ancient example of good ecology, conserving the land's fertility by enforced rest. In modern times, man has become concerned about preserving our planet's resources. As so often, God's word is centuries ahead of the times. And this is key. Isaiah brought out a good point, fertilization. You hear a lot about that. You know, we're killing our land by putting all these fertilizers and chemicals and all these things. God had a remedy for that. He said, you got to rest the land so that it can actually put the nutrients back into itself. God said, I made it work. But we have raped the land. We've torn up our resources, and now we're even getting to chemicals. Our science is a little concerned now. We've got chemical foods. They're producing these are not real foods a lot of times, and we all eat them. They're put in our stuff. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm just saying this is where our society has come when we go against just basic understanding of the principles of the Bible. Look at this next part, redemption of property. So we got to deal with this. Since we got a 50th year, we got a year of Jubilee, all that goes back, how do we buy back our property? How do we get there? God understood there would be fights broken out. So he had to make a whole law to get everybody in place. I need a reader. Leviticus 25, 23 through 28, please.
Land shall not be sold permanently, for the land is mine, for you are strangers and sojourners with me. And in all the land of your possession you shall grant redemption of the land. If one of your brethren becomes poor and has sold some of his possession, and if his redeeming relative comes to redeem it, then he may redeem his brother's soul. For if the man has no one to redeem it, but he himself becomes able to redeem it, then let him count the years since its sale, and restore the remainder to the man to whom he sold it, that he may return to his possession. But he is not able to have it restored to himself, and what was sold shall remain in the hand of him who bought it until the year of Jubilee. And in the Jubilee it shall be released, and he shall return to his possession.
Now we're getting an understanding of the book of Ruth. Remember Naomi, she goes back to her homeland, and she has land, and that whole process of Ruth marrying the home, and this is where they came from. They had the law. They understood land goes to the original owner. But this is important. I told you we're going to work with this. Land could be sold, but not permanently. It could be sold, but not permanently, because who owned it? God said it ain't even yours. I want you to know that it's mine. That's why Jubilee was so important. God said all the land is mine. So God was putting these things in to remind them where their provision came from. And I think in our society, we need those reminders. And I don't like national disasters of any type, but they do. They kind of get you. When people's houses start falling down, neighborhoods are messed up, that hurricane or whatever, that tornadoes that came through, I rode through those neighborhoods, and I was like, wow. And it did something. People were out helping one another. They were giving. We were giving money, all that. But then, after a few months, kind of went back to status quo. You watch out for yours, I'll watch out for mine. It's sad, the human nature of our heart. Look at that next part. There were 3 ways in which land could be redeemed. Reverted to its original Jewish owner. The nearest relative could buy it back for the seller, verse 25. So that original one, but also the relatives. So that kept the families together. Okay, if the original person wasn't there, a relative had to step up. The seller, original owner, if he regained financial solvency, could redeem it, paying the purchaser for the years remaining until the year of Jubilee, verse 26 and 27. Otherwise, the land automatically reverted to its original owner in the year of Jubilee. God had it all lined up. He did all the red tape God took care of. He didn't even want them to get involved. He said, I'm putting this down so there's no confusion. How many got caught up in confusing ways with people manipulating things, and it just exploded. God said, I want to keep peace. I love the way God puts his law down. Yes, ma'am.
My question is, so when the land is converted by, with all the males are dead, the females did not inherit that land.
In Joshua, the book of Joshua, there's going to come up an issue with that. There's going to be a line of males that all die. And the females are going to come and they're going to say, Joshua, what about us? And God is going to make provisions for them to actually take ownership of that land. So God is working up. But originally it always went to that, but God made provision for it to stay within the family. Now, it got a little complicated when the woman married into another family. And that's why we even plan on teaching on this, we got names. You carry over, when you marry, you pick up somebody else's name, and it really came back to ownership. When we think about our seeds going down, our family genealogy line, it doesn't go through the woman. Even though the same blood cell, it always goes to the male. The male carries that name, and that's why it would all go back to the land. It would be surrounded. A lot of your communities were your family name. Right? I never had a street. Some of y'all had a street, Mebane Street. And they knew all the Mebans lived on that street. We used to have home, back in Caldwell County, and there was a street. I guess it was named Wood Street. And they had a big farm there. And my grandpa, way past, they said, I got you a little land there. You got some land. I ain't seen the land. He pulled out a little thing. I'm thinking, like, I don't care. I ain't going out there. He said, this is a little land. It was the fact, I guess I could go out there and say, hey, I'm in Woods, and they showed me my little land. Take my family, we build our little house on a little land. I don't know, but that was our land, and it still is our land. And so he's saying everything has to be redeemed, bought back, or restored, and it all goes back to who you were, the original owner. Did I get all the hands? Look at this final thing. However, did we read Leviticus 29? Someone read that real quick, our last final section, 29 through 31.
If a man sell a house in a walled city, then he may redeem it within a whole year after it is sold. Within a full year he may redeem it. But if it has not redeemed within the space of a full year, then the house in the walled city shall belong permanently to him who bought it, throughout his generation. It shall not be released in the Jubilee. However, the house of villages which have no wall around them shall be counted as the fields of the country. They may be redeemed, and they shall be released in the Jubilee.
In this final part, again, God puts this law for the future. They're at Mount Sinai. They're living in tents. They don't have any wall houses. God is planning for them when they get into the promised land. He's saying this is how you live when you get into the promised land, the future. He gives us directives where we are now so that we can understand the future. Look at that commentary. However, houses inside walled villages, if sold, had to be redeemed within 1 year. There was a period of time, 1 year, or else they remained the permanent possession of the new purchaser. So we had that. It goes back to the original owner, but if they don't come, they got 1 year, and then it goes to the new purchaser. Houses in unwalled villages were treated the same as what? God said, I got everything in place. Now, next time, when you study here, I gave you some extra paper this time. There are exceptions to every rule. And God makes exceptions for the Levitical priesthood because they are his workers. And there's some things that are still continuing on now in our society, and I'll probably talk even with ministers and preachers, some things that we're allowed to do simply because it goes back to this. Because of the Levitical priesthood, there were things that were set aside as far as their housings that God said, I own your houses. And we're going to deal with that on next time. Any final questions? Yes, Steve.
It's interesting to see, but they were living in tents. God had told them that they were going to get houses that they wouldn't even have built and everything. And it's just interesting that he would give this level of detail, talking about houses and all of that, and they don't even have houses now. But the same faith that they're going to get those houses, he tells them what to do with them when they do this.
And that teaching, that's where I think we've lacked, even with our generation, is training them before they get to that point to know how to deal with that. And a lot of them are jumping in and they don't understand those processes. Isaiah.
Yeah, I just got one question. Now, if I sell a piece of land, let's say I sell a piece of land to you, and I have a house on the piece of land, I have to come back within a year and redeem that house, otherwise you take it over and I forfeit the house? That's what this law is saying?
Correct. If you're the original owner, it was sold to somebody else, and then the year of Jubilee comes, and you don't come within that year, the new owner gets to keep that permanently for his lineage.
But I only sell them the land, why should they get my house?
Because you didn't come back. Come on to your feet. Let's close out. I'm really upset about this. Take it up with God out here. Take it up with God. Come on, grab your hands. Let's close out. Oh.